Wednesday at 8:30 on 4.
Now on 4, the Steel City is this week's destination for the Garden Club.
Just about remember as a small boy in Bolton travelling on the trams. They rattle about a bit noisy, but they were exciting. Oh, this is not Bolton, this is Sheffield. And Garden Club is visiting the White Rose County on one of the latest pieces of technology, the super tram. What do you reckon about it then?
It's the only way to travel.
We're now approaching Riverside Square terminus. All passengers ensure to take all their personal belongings with them. Thank you.
Sheffield, Britain's 5th largest city, has been described as a working city in a country setting. Famous as the name on the knife blade, it's renowned the world over for the manufacture of specialist steels. Yet, despite its industrial heritage, Sheffield is a surprisingly green city, with over 50 parks, as well as tree-lined roads and valleys, giving way to open countryside. In fact, Sheffield is the only European city to include parts of a national park within its boundaries, Britain's oldest. And this appreciation of flower and foliage is reflected in the many small private gardens that fill the city and its suburbs.
John, what a fascinating way to landscape a garden.
Yes, it's a bit different. Since we took the lawns out, it's altered the whole concept, really. This part was a lawn 4 years ago. The stream behind me was built 4 years ago with it when we put this patio in. The rest was done about 12 years ago.
What was the inspiration for the design? Because it's quite unique.
Yes, well, I got interested in conifers, and a friend of mine, Steve, he inspired me.
Because you've got some interesting scales here, lots of small plants, and
That's
then
right.
much taller. And low maintenance too, which
That's
is...
very true, yes, it is. It's easy to keep. Once it's laid out, these bridges make it quite easy and accessible to different parts of the garden. This was the only thing, Matt, what was in originally, this privet edge. It's the only thing what was here when we came.
Now, what's happened here?
The snow brought the tree, splayed it, and brought this bough down, and I tied it so that it's now permanent. So I thought it'd be a bit of a feature, really.
Very elegant arch.
Yes.
And this too looks as though you've had a go at it.
Ah, Splenosa, yes. It actually got really decimated with the snow, ripped the branches off, so I stripped it down, standardised it, and trimmed it round, and it's made quite a nice bush. I nearly threw it out, really, but shows you what can be done with something that you're going to throw in the scrap heap, isn't it?
John, I recognise that. That's Cupressus cashmeriana, isn't it?
That's right, it is. It's a beautiful tree, isn't it? Really
but that's
is.
the sort of thing that you'd expect to see in a conservatory or growing in a very sheltered garden in the south of England.
That's right. It has wintered out last year. It got a little burnt, but you've got to be careful about the frost taking it, really.
They don't propagate so easily, do they?
No, they tend to be done from grafts or seed normally, but it was a bit of a challenge, so I took 20 cuttings off, and I managed to get 2 to take. Quite pleased with it, really. Just simple heel cuttings. You'd take a piece as that, just tear it off gently there. That's the heel, strip off the excess, and just dip that in hormone rooting powder, knock off the excess, and I actually rooted it in sand, sharp sand. You can put a bit of peat in it, but that's what I actually did it in. It took about 12 weeks, quite surprised. The bottom heat failed, which, so it was done raw, really, you know, no added help with it, really.
God, there's loads in here.
Yes, there are a few, Matt. This is the cashmeriana. We took 20 of those and we got 2 off. The success rate's a bit better normally than that. In fact, the first lot I did was Juniper Skyrocket, and I got hundreds, 100% take. I didn't know what to do with the things at the moment.
John, there's something unusual about this glass house that I can't quite pinpoint.
Yes, Matt, it's a solar greenhouse. It is different in that it's got glazing just on the two sides, and it's got very heavy insulation in the north-facing wall and between the cavities in the breeze. Very efficient. It's made from stuff that's recycled, really. They're putting some flats down, that's where the insulation came from. Second-hand timbers. Very efficient, never have to use any additional heating, even in winter.
So it's just absorbing the sun's rays?
Yes, it absorbs in the mass of the building and lets the heat out at night. Very, very simple principle, but very efficient.
So what are these tanks for? Are these part of the grand scheme?
Yes, they're filled with water, and again, they absorb the heat in the daytime and let it out at night.
Just like the bricks in a night storage heater?
Exactly the same principle, yes, that's right.
And what are you doing with these lovely logs?
I plant them up and put them around the garden, put alpines on them. This is the type of thing that we can plant up, and this is what we can achieve. You just start basically with the soil, which I'm using johnnies, and diluting it with about 20% of gravel. So we buy this little red sedum here. We're planting that on, and to give a contrast, we've got the blue and we bring in the purple tinus. You've got 3 different colours. They're a nice feature.
Yeah, they look wonderful in the garden, don't they?
Yes, they're quite attractive, really.
This organic allotment is a real showcase. Trevor Myers grows mouth-watering vegetables that money just couldn't buy. This is immaculate, Trevor. The plants are so healthy. What do you feed them on?
Well, because this is an organic allotment, I make sure that I try to get as much ware-rotted manure as possible. I also create garden compost if I can get all the organic material that I need. I use nettles and also comfrey, and those 2 ingredients together make a wonderful liquid feed. So we're actually growing our own fertiliser here.
How do you make the liquid feed with the comfrey?
Well, it's simplicity itself. All you need to do is cut off the comfrey about 2 inches from the surface of the soil, pop it straight into an old water butt with a hole in its base, crush the comfrey down with a heavy weight, a stone or whatever else you can find. Then all you have to do is to wait 2 to 3 weeks. This is a concentrated liquid, so you would then need to dilute it between 10 parts of water to 1 of liquid, or 20 or 30.
I've noticed that you grow a lot of legumes and beans on the plot as well. That must help with the fertility.
They do. I always try to plan each year to grow at least 25% of my crops from the legume family. That's peas and beans. I've got 2 sorts here. The white blossomed beans are the Tsar. That's a very old variety. And the ones with the red and white blossom, which are particularly unusual, that's the Painted Lady. That's from 1855, and it used to be called the York and Lancaster runner, representing the white rose and the red rose of Yorkshire and Lancashire. So they're a very old variety, and those are still available from seed catalogues, but they're starting to disappear because the new varieties tend to yield more, and they're really more designed for freezing, and I don't want a freezing variety. This one here, the Selma Zebra, is a variety that's no longer available. I'm very concerned about the fact that these varieties are gradually disappearing.
But why can't you buy them? Why can't you pay out money and buy that in a packet?
Well, these varieties, they've been taken off the national list because the seed suppliers don't feel that they are worth keeping them going. For whatever reason, it may be that they are not uniform anymore, that they don't crop all at the same time, and that they just haven't got what modern growers are needing. And I don't believe that that's the case at all. I'm a member of the Heritage Seed Programme run by the Henry Doubleday Research Organisation, and their sole aim is to make sure that all these old varieties that you can't go and buy over the counter of a shop, all these varieties aren't lost. The project has what are known as seed guardians, and they're people who really cherish these old varieties, and what they do is to grow on these varieties and keep them going, make sure that they've got seed at the end of each season, and these seed are then distributed by the Henry Doubleday Research Association under their Heritage Seed Programme.
You've got some more beans up there that look very attractive.
Yes.
They're part of the heritage.
This is the San Antonio. This is a particularly attractive bean.
It's got large dark leaves, hasn't it?
Yes, the flavour's wonderful, and I do like flavour with my beans. The crimson flowered broad bean goes back to at least 1778, and I believe that all of the original broad beans that were grown in the fields were all crimson coloured, but the only one that we've got left now is the crimson flowered broad bean that I'm growing here. The main point of the Heritage Seed Programme is that once plants are extinct is forever. We can't get them back again. And so all the possibilities of research into pests and diseases are lost. So we need to make sure that we don't lose them. And the best way to save plants is to pass them on to other people, to give them away.
Thank you.
One of the most pleasant surprises I've had in visiting Sheffield is how in these quite small suburban gardens you often get the most amazing plants, unusual, sometimes plants that in theory are very tender. But look at this one. This is a kind of exotic raspberry. It's called Rubus lineatus. And in the wild it comes from the Himalaya through into China and even down as far as Malaysia. And yet here it is growing as happy as you please. Now in mild areas of Britain this can get up to 10 feet. Here it's about 5 feet. Okay, it's occasionally cut down in very cold winters and it sprouts up again, it suckers. And the beautiful thing about this, lineatus, refers to the leaves. Now you can see on the upper surface those long veins, parallel veins, lots and lots of them. I'd hate to have to count all those. And the shoots as well, the young shoots where they bend over at the tips, covered in silvery, silky hairs. But the best surprise I saved to the last, because when you turn the leaves over, there's that gorgeous silvery sheen on the undersurface.
We, the undersigned, thought it was time for a new kind of credit card.
We'd had enough of paying an annual fee.
We wanted something more than just a bill every month.
If you'd like a new kind of credit card, sign here.
The GM card from Vauxhall. No annual fee, a rebate towards the cost of a new Vauxhall, or if you're a company car driver, a very attractive alternative.
No wonder it's been Britain's fastest growing credit card.
You'll be surprised by what you find in the Times on Saturday. And it costs 40 pence less than the Telegraph.
The Times, it's a small price for a great newspaper.
The burning pain of excess stomach acid may be put out, only to come back. And back. And back. But one little pill of Pepsid AC helps put out the pain and controls excess acid for up to 9 hours.
Pepsid AC, available from your pharmacist without a prescription. Acid control for up to 9 hours.
There is a new tenderness. A gentle wave of ice cream in a crispy wafer cone. Kissed with that taste of chocolate and crunchy nuts. There's just one Cornetto. It's Wool's Cornetto, the only heart of cream.
Oh, the summertime is coming, and the trees are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme.
Only men's minds could ever have mapped into abstraction such a territory.
Will you go? I say go.
Organics, the only shampoo with glucosil. a natural nutrient which nourishes the life source of hair, the roots. Organics strengthens hair, giving life and body. So hair looks radiant with health and beauty. Organics from the Elida Hair Institute, the first ever root nourishing shampoo.
Feast your eyes on two of the most delicious cereals ever. From Quaker.
You can always tell where a king gardener lives. Who else would have Clematis campaniflora all the way from Portugal tumbling over their garden wall? Not often seen in gardens, but it's hardy. And look at it in bud, those flowers, like teardrops, and very delicate, exquisite little bellflowers. Beautiful plant indeed. This is Cynthia and Tom Kilcoyne's garden. Cynthia's lived all her life in this house. That's a fine specimen of Eugraphia
thank you.
Nyman,
Yes,
Cynthia?
yes, it is, yes.
How old would that plant be?
It'll be, I should think, 12 years old.
Really?
Yes.
Some people say that plants like that can't grow north of the Watford Gap. But
Oh, well, it shows them different, doesn't it?
This
It
garden
does,
is
yeah.
packed with plants. Is it the same in the back?
It is, but slightly different. Come
Really?
and have a look.
Yes, please. Oh, I see. Yes. Right. Has it always been like this, Cynthia?
No, it was very different when I was a child. It was a typical 1930s garden. Privet hedge all the way around, rectangular lawn, rose beds.
So you changed all this. When did you actually start doing that?
I suppose when my children went to school.
Yeah.
Went to the botanical gardens a lot, went walking around there.
But lovely colour schemes. Did you actually find these in the big gardens you've been visiting?
I read a lot.
Yeah.
I did a lot of reading.
Yeah.
I think I have more or less every book out of the library.
Well, we all start that way
That's
somehow,
right,
don't we?
yes.
And here you've got some very interesting patio plants, the Cosmos astrasanguineus there.
Yes, it is nice, isn't it?
Are you
Yes,
proud
yes.
of that?
I am. I'm very proud of it. It's done very well this year. And
And
it
what do you do
smells
with-
absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. Chocolate?
Chocolate,
Chocolatey.
yes, yes.
You know that's now extinct in the wild, apparently. Comes from
So-
Mexico. And it's first introduced about the middle of the last century. And I suppose it was collected and collected until all the wild plants disappeared. There were none left. But apparently Kew is gathering together forms of this plant from as wide an area as possible, in cultivation that is, with a view to reintroducing it eventually into the wild so it'll be put back where it belongs. And so,
Yes,
so you're doing a
yes.
great thing in growing plants like this in your
Yes,
garden.
yes.
Helping to... And this one, Begonia sutherlandi,
Yes, that gets put on top of the wardrobe in the winter. Dry it off completely.
Yeah.
And then start watering it in the spring and repot it.
from southern Africa. You know, this is almost hardy. I grow this outside in my garden, but I'm in the
Do you
south.
really? Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
I cover it with peat in the winter, but it comes through, and so far I've had it about 5 years.
Yes.
I see you've got one of the best ground cover plants here, Asarum europaeum.
Yes, it is rather nice, isn't it? A present from a friend. Most of this garden is made up of gifts from friends, either plants or cuttings.
That's still got its leaves, a nice shiny kidney-shaped leaf. Mine have been eaten by the slugs.
Have they? Yes, I'm surprised ours haven't.
Folks, how long have you had that? I haven't seen this in a garden before. The bog myrtle, a native
Oh, we've
shrub.
had that quite a long time, yes.
Yes, it's been in the paper quite a lot recently, this plant. Apparently there's a man in Skye, and you might remember we were there a few weeks ago.
Yes, I remember that.
And it grows wild, of course. And he noticed that wherever this grew, there was never any trouble with midges. And so now various people are looking into this, the possibility of extracting some essence to use as an anti-midge, you know, a midge repellent.
Yes,
Can you imagine
yeah,
it?
very good.
Right, it was something, that.
Yes.
Now, see over here, you've got one of the best of all the dwarf Fastilbis.
Oh, yes, that's Sprite. Yeah, yes, it's nice, isn't it? Nice shell pink colour. Very pretty. that.
Attractive in foliage too, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's done well this year. This is our damp corner.
Oh, yeah.
And last year, when it was so hot, it just never flowered at all.
No. Very bright,
Compost.
variegated Brunnera.
Yes, that's Brunnera macrophylla. I think it's the variegator.
Yes,
that one.
it is indeed, yes.
Yes.
Very bright variegation then. It really sort of
Yes, it's
lifts
lovely.
that corner,
Lights
doesn't
the
it?
corner, doesn't
fairly,
it? Yes.
Fairly dark otherwise,
Yes.
yeah. Ever since I came round the back, I've been admiring this lawn. It's a super one.
It is a good one, isn't it? Yes.
Is it your work?
No, no. No, my husband Tom does this. Yes,
Really?
yes. He cuts it every other day.
I tell you, it's better than mine. You won't like to swap, would you?
I don't think he would.
What a charming, nice sunken area here, Cynthia.
Well, my dad actually made this when I was very
Did he?
little. Yes.
But did he plant it with, what, roses and things?
No, it was... There were some roses, but it was mostly bedding plants
All
in
right.
those days, I think.
And you created this, what, how many years ago?
Well, over the years, I couldn't really say.
Yeah.
It's
Whole
just
range
developed.
of colours.
Yes, I tried to make them nice, soft, pleasant, relaxing colours.
Oh, that certainly does turn out. I particularly like that eryngium giganteum there.
It self-sows, that one.
Does it?
Yes, yes. It comes on from year to year.
So you never have to sort of replant it or anything like that?
No, no.
It's such a special area, this, Cynthia. I mean, do you spend a lot of time here?
I spend some time here. I intend sitting here for quite a long time, but you can imagine you're very soon up and off. You see something that wants doing and off you go.
So you don't actually dream here, I think I would.
No, but others do.
If you have a backyard that really is the size of a postage stamp, what can you hope to do with it? Chris and Catherine think that they've found the ideal solution. Chris, you've a lovely garden tucked here behind the terraced houses, but what was it like when you first came?
Well, Matt, it was more or less the classic 2 lumps of lawn, a path down the middle and a privet hedge.
So how long did you manage to cope with that for?
About 18 months. What I really did for it was the second winter that we lived here. The lawn just disappeared and all we had was a sea of mud to replace it.
And so what was your first task?
Because it was so dark, we tried to get a little bit of light into the garden. So the first thing to go was the privet hedge. That gave us an extra 2-foot width to the garden. It was amazing the difference that it made. And the tree overhung the garden quite a bit, so we lopped some of the branches off, which were dangerous anyway.
Now you replaced the privet hedging with this beautiful trellising.
Yep, that's a little bit of my handiwork, if I can say that.
You made it yourself? Very impressed.
Yeah, it's just roofing lats, that's all, from a local timber merchant.
And what about the post tops?
Right, well, keeping business in the family, my dad turned those on his lathe.
He's made a fine job of them, hasn't he?
Yeah, they really finished the fence off.
And what was your next move?
Right, well, still trying to put a bit more light into the garden. We put the shapes of the beds in, laid out the log rolls, and then laid the limestone chip-ins. And because they're so light-coloured, it just reflects the light and made the garden totally different.
And they go really well with the grey foliage plants and the pastel colours.
That's right, and the green that we've used to paint the fence.
Now the pond, was that another bit of handiwork?
Yeah, what happened was we were given the pond liner as a joint birthday present, and once that was in place, it was just a matter of building a wooden box around it, and then before we put the lip on the top, all we did was we dropped sand on the inside to support the rest of the skin. Most of the boxes and the raised beds have been made out of old floorboards and bits of woods that we pinched out of skips, if the truth be known.
And what about the planting?
Well, you'll have to ask Catherine about that. She's the plants woman of the family, Matt.
Catherine.
Yeah.
I gather that you're the wizard with the planting ideas. So how did you work out your plans?
Well, I've always been interested in herbs, and when we got the garden, I inherited a few odd clumps of mint and lemon balm, and I was also given plants as well. And I just decided that I wanted to create a formal herb garden. And what I've tried to do is colour theme it. So there are 4 beds, and they've all got a specific colour. There's a white bed, a pink bed, a yellow one, and a blue.
And over in this corner is a most magnificent display of evergreens.
Right, well obviously a lot of the herbs die down in winter, so I wanted something to give me all year round interest, and that's why I put together, there are 3 beds, and there's a selection of hebes, euonymus and variegated privet, and they're just something nice to look at in winter.
And another plant that caught my eye was in the pool here, this very beautiful aquatic horsetail.
Right, well that's something I bought from one of the garden shows. I have to say I'm a bit of a devil when it comes to buying plants. Other people smoke and drink to excess. My vice is buying plants.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that.
I didn't know the first thing about it, but it was just such a striking plant that I had to buy it.
Absolute gem, isn't it?
Mm.
Now that's one of your favourites. Are there any others?
Right, the lavateras, or the lavatras, however you want to pronounce it. I've got the commoner garden lavateras, but I've also got a few slightly unusual plants as well that I think are ideal for small gardens. The one behind you is burgundy wine, which is ideal for a small garden. It stays low and compact. It has masses of purpley red flowers and deep green foliage. The one behind me, candy floss, it's a paler flower, but it's excellent for being containerised. Again, it stays quite small. And another one you don't tend to see around is ice cool, which is a pure white flower with a green eye.
That's lovely, actually. That really appeals.
It is, it's beautiful. Again, it will only grow to about 4 foot max, but it's not hardy.
And do you make your own compost as well?
Yes, I do. Got a small compost bin hidden behind the trellis, and it's conveniently placed next to the rabbit hutch because I use the litter from the rabbit as a compost activator.
So how do you see your garden developing in the future?
I don't know really what I can do to it now apart from grow upwards, so I'd really like to have a go at doing other people's gardens now.
Industrial Sheffield might seem a long way from the Garden of Eden, but I wonder, Matt, what Adam and Eve would have had to say about this monstrous fig growing on the banks of the River Don.
You'd be hard pushed, wouldn't you, to find one this size? I would think even if you went to the Middle East and
That's right. And it's not the only one, there are others further upriver.
So how would they have got here?
Well, the story goes that years ago, when there was more industry upriver, the factories would take water from the river, put it through the system and return it heated, creating a sort of microclimate favourable for figs.
So it could have come from somebody's lunchbox, or a bird could have dropped it.
That's right, yeah. But it may seem an extraordinary story, but here's the proof of the pudding.
Yeah, you can hardly argue with that, can you? Well, that's the end of our visit to Yorkshire. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. And next week, we're going to Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk to visit some gardens around there. So until then, enjoy your gardening. Do join us then. Goodbye.
Bye. Some of the leaves here, they're really... What I can't tell is just how far back that...
For the fact sheet covering the 3 current Garden Club programmes, please send a cheque or postal order for £2.50 payable to Channel 4 to Garden Club, PO Box 4000, Cardiff, CF5 2XT. The Channel 4 book, Garden Club, is still available from most bookshops, priced £14.99.